Hello, welcome. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I'm just starting to get set up here. Hello, everybody, and welcome. We're just getting started here. I have two phones going on right now, so if I'm glancing around, it's because I'm switching back and forth between the phones. If you're in the chat, can you just let me know if you can hear me correctly and, if things look okay before I get started? Awesome. Thank you for letting me know on YouTube that you guys hear me well. Last time I did this, it was recording the sound properly, but it was like lagging. I don't know. The video portion was lagging. I've never had that happen before. So if it's lagging, please let me know, but it looks pretty normal to me this time. Awesome. People are telling me that I sound pretty good. All right, guys, I'm going to get started like super quick. It's 6:30. Both of my phones have low battery because I have a 6-year-old that decided to break his tablet this week, and now he's been secretly using both my phones all the time. So I'm going to try and go through this really quickly. Please, if you have questions, I'm gonna look at them and answer them as much as I can. But if I miss something, because I'm trying to go real fast, please feel free to message me, email me, like whatever you gotta do. I really enjoy answering your questions, and I'd hate to miss somebody here. If you ask a question, please let me know your garden zone and what state you're located in. That's the only way I can answer things, is if I kind of know here. And I'm not the most tech savvy when it comes to streaming yet. I'm learning stuff, and hopefully we'll get it set up a lot better than what I have going on right now. If I reach over, it's because on YouTube I have to click to show me the chat messages, which is super annoying. On TikTok, they just show up. So I have to keep reaching over to click the button here on YouTube. Let me just move my YouTube people maybe a little bit closer, and that'll help with the reaching over. So yeah, I promise this will get better. I do want to go live more often. I'm setting up a new office space so that I'm not outdoors where I'm like baking and melting in front of all of you. So if I have a nice setup indoors, then I will definitely be doing live classes and different things a lot more often. So let's get started. This is the third session of my fall garden series. Every session we're doing something different, sowing seeds. The whole point of this is basically I'm holding your hands from starting seeds all the way to transplanting. I will start transplanting things in September. So once we get to the classes I'm going to do in September, which by the way, the next one will be Sunday, September 3rd, same time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to try to, I don't know the topic of that one yet. It depends where all my transplants are at this point. If they're ready, then I'm going to be in the garden with you guys, showing you how I transplant everything. If they're not ready quite yet, then I'll figure something else out, So anyways, let's get started. Just introduction, kind of some reminders for everyone watching this. If you're watching me on TikTok or YouTube, my phones can overheat, or they could shut down if they run out of battery. If that happens, I'm so sorry. Jump onto YouTube or vice versa if you can, and continue watching. Or, I will be posting a copy of this same live on my YouTube channel. So if you missed something, get disconnected, forgot to watch one of the classes one day, whatever, check out my YouTube channel. It's under the live tab section. Make sure you guys subscribe to my channel or my account. That way you get notified of, when I go live. And if you want to get the schedule of future dates and times for these classes, make sure you join my email newsletter. There's a link on my website. There on my TikTok, there's a link in my bio. It says email newsletter. On YouTube, I'll have to wait for the video to load so that I can put it in the description. Or just go to my website, jarrahsgarden.com, and there's a button at the top to join the email newsletter. That way, I send you guys notices and things of the next time I plan to go live. I don't have a set schedule. I have a very busy life, so it just depends when I can find a Sunday that I'm available. Okay. So I just slowly start letting people know. So like I said, next class September 3rd, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. I also have a seed sale going on my website right now. So if you need any seeds for all these things that I'm talking about, all the things that I love to grow here in my garden, definitely go take advantage of that seed sale. It ends Wednesday, I believe. So go check that out on my website if you need anything. Now I have to say, I always say this at the beginning of all my live classes. I am in Florida. I'm in Orlando, Florida, Zone 9B. I barely have a winter. Okay, so this course, this class, fall gardening, is very geared to other gardeners in the same situation. So southern parts of the United States, zones 8 and up. The timing of everything is going to more or less match what I'm doing here in my garden. If you are in those areas of the country, from California all the way to, Florida coast, whatever. If you are in a much colder climate, you can definitely still learn from this class, because how to grow something, the techniques and all that, fertilizing, taking care of plants, is going to be the same no matter where you live. But your timing will be different, so you will have to adjust accordingly. If Also, fall gardening is very dependent on your first average frost date for winter time. If you don't know what that is, there's a website called plantmaps.com. You put in your zip code, it spits out tons of data about your specific area. And part of that would be your average first winter frost date and your average last spring frost date, and your garden zone, temperatures, and all kinds of useful information. So definitely go check that website out. For fall gardening, it's very dependent on when your first winter frost date is. Mine is the last week of December. So I have a solid 4 months or so before that happens. I can plant a lot of things right now from seed and have plenty of time to harvest all that stuff out before my first winter frost comes. So just to give you an idea. After this class is done, I will also send a summary email through my newsletter, folks, just kind of recapping what we discussed, any kind of resources or supplies that I mentioned during these live classes. I will put links in there if you want to find the same things, okay? So the theme of today's class is sowing seeds for anything in the Brassicas family. So that includes a lot of my favorite vegetables, right? We got broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbages. I mean, there's so many, but they are very tricky, especially if you are in a warm climate. And I will definitely go into details on how to know when to plant these things so that you actually can harvest a head of broccoli or cauliflower, because it gets real tricky. And we're going to discuss really quick sowing seeds for flowers and herbs, just in general, how I do that. So really quick, I want to start with the supplies that I recommend to sow these types of crops right now. And I already have examples because I started sowing my seeds. So the month of August is, I'm sowing seeds for all of these things, like right now. So for the Brassicas family, these crops get pretty big, and I don't like to waste my time potting up. And I'm sorry guys, I'm trying to go fast before my batteries all die and stuff like that. So I haven't had a chance to look at the messages in the chat. I'm pretty sure I have some shampoo ginger plants, some of the small ones and the large ones but on my website directly, not on my Etsy shop. So jarrahsgarden.com. Go check that out. I am definitely running low on the shampoo ginger. It'll take me a couple months to grow some more. So just so you know. You started your Brussels sprouts last month and a solo cup. Okay, awesome. Zone 9B in Daytona, so you're doing great. I actually haven't started my seeds for Brussels sprouts. I'm still kind of trying to figure out which one I want to grow. How did my mango tree do this year? Interesting question, because it's been an odd year for my mangoes. So they flowered like crazy, like they normally do, which is in February. So I was like, yes, I'm going to get a great harvest this year. But then all of those flowers fell off, and we didn't even get another cold front or something. So I really don't know why those flowers fell off. Maybe it was just too dry or something like that. So literally I had nothing forming. And then it flowered again, in April or something, which is really weird. And I actually have 5 of them on my Kerry mango right now, and they're almost ready for harvest. So odd year. Last year I had 15 of them on my tree. This year I have 5. So I'm not sure what that's about, to be honest, but at least I got some. Let's see my questions real quick. You're in Zone 9B, Arizona. Perfect. You can follow me. That's perfect. All right. So sowing supplies for Brassicas family. I don't like wasting time potting up. I don't like to start them in something smaller like a 72 cell seed tray or whatever. I like the 4-inch size pots or solo cups, whatever you can find, guys. If you use the solo cups, I do cut like 3 little holes at the bottom for drainage. Broccoli and cauliflower and brassicas in general, they get really big. Like you want them to be really big, like as big as possible at the time of transplant. And I'll explain more about that later. So if you plant them, sow seeds in like, this is a 50 cell seed tray, but I have 72 cells as well. If you plant them in here, they're going to sprout, they're going to grow, but then at some point you're going to have to pot these up because they're going to run out of space and that will stunt their growth. Okay, they really do a lot better when they have more space, like at least minimum 4-inch size pot container. For the flowers and herbs, you can use things that are smaller at that point. In general, I've got a mix of the 50 cells and the 72 cells. And I finally found some good ones on Amazon that are like heavy duty, thick plastic that I really like. So I will list that in the email and stuff on my Amazon links. But anyways, very easy to start. Tons of herbs, tons of flowers, and these things right here. They're ready to transplant when you can see their roots starting to come out of the drainage holes at the bottom of these cells. And then I take a fork and like pry these out so I don't damage the whole root system or anything like that. And just check it. If that root system is pretty developed and it stayed in a plug type of shape, it didn't like fall apart on you, it's ready to be transplanted in the garden. So these types of sizes work really great for flowers and herbs. The only thing I would caution is if you're trying to grow sunflowers, because sunflowers, they're big plants to begin with. They have a taproot system that gets pretty long, and if they don't have enough room to grow, they get stunted. So if you're not getting nice, big, tall sunflowers, if you're growing those big varieties, that could be why they got stunted, because they had no space for their long taproot. And I do have a YouTube video growing guide about growing sunflowers where I talk about that. So for sunflowers, I do recommend at least the 4-inch size containers. Zinnias also get pretty big, so they benefit if they are sowed in something a little bit bigger. But quite honestly, a lot of the annual flowers that flower within 2.5 to 3 months from seed can just be broadcasted. Okay, so that's zinnias, cosmos, marigolds, any kind of empty spots you have in your garden. You can start throwing seeds for that stuff out now. Just make sure the soil stays nice and moist to help them germinate and everything. Okay. Also, I use the same setup for herbs. I didn't mention, I was talking about flowers, but same setup for herbs, same deal. So 50 or 72 cell seed trays work great for pretty much all the herbs. I've mentioned many times before for seeds starting soil, I really like the sterile mixes that are made for seed starting. I've mentioned it many times already through my live classes, so I'm not going to go through it again. But if you can't find it, you can't make it, whatever, use what you have. Just know that you're going to have some kind of probably a loss or a bad germination or some seedlings that die off from like dampening off or pathogens and things like that. So a little bit extra if you have to, just to make sure, that you get something. Fertilizer, it's all the way up there. I don't have it. But as soon as any seedlings, anything I'm growing, has their first set of true leaves, I start fertilizing with a liquid fertilizer at half strength of whatever the directions say. I've mentioned it many times. I really like Fox Farms Grow Big for this. I don't recommend fish emulsion. It's very weak, in my opinion. It's a very weak fertilizer. I've used it many, many times, but I definitely get better results when I use something else. So Fox Farms, even Miracle Grow, I believe, has some organic fertilizers now too and stuff like that. So whatever, or Agro Thrive is another one that I see a lot in like the big box stores. Whatever you can find, guys, for real. But just remember half the strength of whatever the directions say so you don't kill and burn your seedlings. All right. So where should you sow your seeds? Take a look outside right now. What does your climate look like right now? If it's super hot above 85 degrees Fahrenheit, not good for any kind of seeds, to be honest. Especially the brassicas. They get stunted in growth and they stay teeny tiny like this forever. That means they got stunted in growth because they were exposed to too much heat. If it's above 85 degrees outside, which probably safe to say the majority of you, that is your situation. you have to sow these indoors. I'm point blank. Don't even try. I can't tell you how many times I was like, they'll be okay. I'll put them in a shady spot. The shade is still 95 degrees where I'm at or more. It don't matter. So I can't tell you how many times I wasn't able to grow brassicas for fall because my seedlings got stunted. They were too far behind by the point it came for time for planting. Okay, take it from me. I mean, do what you want, but that's what happens. If you fail with your brassica seedlings, they got stunted, whatever, by the time October rolls around, at that point, you need to buy actual transplants, okay? That's the only way it's going to work. And I'll get into that a little bit more. So, if it's really extremely hot outside, if you're in Florida, it's really rainy outside, there's a lot of pests and diseases. Just a second, guys. Lots of pests and diseases. They love to chew up all your tender seedlings. Don't sow them outdoors. If you want to be successful as much as possible, don't sow them outdoors right now. I have a little tiny like mini greenhouse that just fits like 6 of these trays right here, these 10 by 20 trays, in a corner in my house, and that's where I am sowing seeds for all these brassicas, flowers, herbs, whatever. The warm weather stuff like tomatoes, peppers, all that, they're fine outdoors. I actually move them outside to get like morning sun, but then bring them back in on these shelves at the height of the day of the heat, because even then they get a little stressed out. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but that's how I do it, guys. So so where are you gonna sow your seeds? As a professional, I recommend indoors right now for these particular crops, and I know that not everyone can do that, but just try your best, guys. So yeah, let me go through my notes right here, get caught up. As soon as something germinates, it needs light. And I'm saying that because if you are sowing your seeds indoors, like I just said, they need light as soon as they germinate. Mine just germinated. These are about a couple days old, 5 days old or something like that. They need light or they're going to get leggy. They're going to be reaching for light, and that causes a lot of growth issues. I use shop lights, not grow lights, shop lights, 4-foot, or sometimes you can find them 2-foot shop lights, really cheap at Harbor Freight, Walmart. Just make sure they're 5,000 kelvins, lumens, whatever the daylight range, and you're good to go. And I do have a how to sow seeds YouTube tutorial that explains everything, my whole setup, everything. So if you want more details about anything I just mentioned, go check out that video. It's awesome. All right, and I also have the month of August gardening guide. I do a YouTube video version, and then I have it written down on my website too, for those of you that want to copy, paste, save that stuff, whatever. So it's already posted, so go check that out. It goes through all of the things that you can sow from seed or transplant right now in the month of August, not just, brassicas, flowers, and herbs. Gets pretty in-depth with a lot of ideas for you guys. Okay, so I went through all the supplies and everything. Let's talk about sowing seeds for flowers and herbs, and I'll get into the whole brassicas things. So a general guideline when seed sowing is the smaller the seed, the less deep it needs to be planted or covered with dirt. You want to sow the seed twice as deep as the actual size of that seed. And some of the super teeny tiny seeds, honestly, they don't even need to be covered with soil. And a great example is like chamomile. Those, they're like microscopic seeds. I just sprinkle those on the surface of, whatever I'm sowing them in, and then press them down with my fingers so they make good contact with the soil, water them in, and you're good to go. Some seeds do need light to germinate, like chamomile actually needs light to germinate. Some other examples are ground cherries, tithonia, and sometimes some milkweed or some of the other wildflowers, because out in the wild, these flowers just throw seeds everywhere, right? In the fields, meadows, whatever, and they land on the soil surface, and sometimes they benefit from having some good direct light on them to speed up germination, okay? Other flowers, like I said, the large flowers like zinnias, sunflowers, hollyhock, they need some extra space. Plant them in something like this. I don't know if you guys can hear the cars. I'm in a neighborhood. Literally, the road is right there, but that's what that is. All right. So like I said, you're good to go. Start your flowers and herbs. They're usually ready to be transplanted between 4 to 8 weeks, depending on what you're growing. Okay, so it just depends. All right, now let's talk about the Brassicas. Let me take a quick break, look at my messages real quick. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to go through this as quickly as possible. I have to scroll up here. Okay, I'm in Crystal River, Zone 9A. What's the difference between that and Zone 9B? The difference between A and B, no matter where you're at, is a 5-degree difference. So zones only tell you how cold it could potentially get in your area. Okay, so Zone 9B, what I potentially could experience is weather in any given winter down to, I want to say 25 degrees Fahrenheit, I think. And I've never seen that. I track that every fall, you know, how cold it gets. And the lowest I've seen is like 30 degrees. But it could get down to 25. All right. So I'm in 9B. So you people in 9A, it could get down to 20. All right. And the difference between zone 9 and 8 or zone 9 and 10 is 10 degrees. All right. So there's a 10-degree difference there. Then they break it down into even little smaller groups, A and B, which is 5 degrees differences. So that's all that says is how cold it can get in your, you know, particular area during a winter. So you know, plant the correct type of plants that will survive that. So that's why that's important to know. But zone information has nothing to do with your actual climate, how hot it is, how wet it is. Like all of these other weather factors, you know, affect your plants a lot, especially the heat when you're like in Florida. Let me scroll through my TikTok people and see any questions. Can I talk about rosemary? All herbs are difficult to grow. I don't know where you're located. If you're going to ask a question, please put where you're located. But in the South, if it's really rainy, rosemary struggles. It hates humidity and a lot of extra rain. And a lot of other herbs are kind of the same deal. So I have actually started planting all my herbs, including rosemary, in grow bags specifically, because grow bags dry out really quickly. It's almost annoying, and it's kind of like a con of gardening in grow bags. But use that to your advantage when it comes to growing herbs. So a lot of my herbs are actually doing okay in the middle of summer right now for once, and I'm kind of shocked how well it's going. So even though we get rain sometimes like back to back every day, it's drying that soil out and they're doing much better. Herbs are Mediterranean plants. They come from Europe, or they grow naturally in Europe. It's drier and the temperatures are more moderate. They're not extreme, like extreme hot or extreme cold. So it also helps, you know, planting in a grow bag or a container. And if it's extreme heat, like in Florida right now, you can move them into a spot that gets bright morning sun, afternoon shade. So that will help your herbs last a lot longer. And I've had some rosemary bushes, like big bushes, so they can grow here. I'm just checking my more messages. You bought a shampoo ginger. I hope you enjoy them. I love them. Sun requirement for shampoo ginger. Can you tell me where you're located? If you're in Florida or the South, where like full sun is, any state north of us is like, that's full sun. Florida is like 2 times the full sun of whatever full sun is for everyone else. So they benefit a lot better growing in a spot that gets bright morning sun but afternoon shade. And the same thing goes for turmeric and galangal, ginger, anything like that. They do much better getting afternoon shade. You're in North Florida, perfect. That does apply to you, okay? If you notice that the leaves are more yellow than they are green, they're getting way too much sun or too much water. One of those two. That's usually the reason behind it. But all right, guys, so I checked my messages really quick. Let me get back to the class. Because like I said, my batteries are probably going to die. Or I'm going to melt in front of you because it's like 90-something right now. But, okay. So now, how do we sow seeds for brassicas? This is going to get pretty detailed, all right? Because I need you all to understand. It's a very hard crop for us in zones, areas with mild, warm winters, okay? Some years have been fantastic for me. One year I harvested basketball-sized purple cauliflower. It was awesome. I actually that was like one of my very first YouTube videos actually that I made. It was awesome. That was a great year. But then last season, a lot of mine just went to bolt and I barely harvested anything. So I don't know. The weather fluctuates so much. But don't give up. Try it, okay? It might work out great and you'll get some basketball-sized heads of broccoli and cauliflower. All right, so anyways, these specifics about brassicas. Yeah. So I'm sorry, guys. I'm reading my notes. All right. So if you don't know, when things in the Brassicas family are exposed to too much heat, it causes them to bolt, which means flower, instead of forming nice, dense heads, just like the broccoli you buy at the grocery store, right? That is actually a head or a collection of super tiny little flowers that are unopened. They haven't bloomed yet. So when you're harvesting broccoli or cauliflower, the goal is to harvest it before those little flowers start getting bigger and they start opening up and blooming. At that point, they're not the best for eating. It is edible. The whole plant is edible. You can eat it, but not the best if you want really good, heads of broccoli. So, and trust me, if you start to see those little buds starting to get bigger, the head is not going to get any bigger than that at that point. So harvest it. Don't leave it there thinking, oh, maybe it'll grow a little bit more before it blooms. No. It's gonna bloom. So you're best to just harvest it at that point. All right, but anyways, so yeah, so the goal is to harvest these things, have the plant grow a nice big head, and then harvest that before it starts blooming and everything. So or bolting. So that's what bolting means. So you have to grow these during the coolest parts of the year. Okay, and I have a technique for figuring out what that window is for you, depending on where you live. When these plants are in the stage of producing that head, of growing that head, and you could see it starts out really small in the middle of the plant, starts getting bigger, and coming out. That stage of developing the head has to be in the very coldest months, all right, the absolute coldest. So for me, the absolute coldest months are the very end of December, January, and like maybe the tiny bit of the beginning of February. So I need to time this to where I plant my plant and the flowering stage ends up in one of those months so that it doesn't bolt. It's not exposed to too much warmth, and then it starts bolting. So that's kind of like your little window right there. And then cross your fingers and hope you don't get a heat wave in the middle of winter, because that can happen. Where we have very cold weather, cold front, and then the next day or whatever, that in the morning it just skyrockets and goes back up to like 80 sometimes. It can happen. So that's what I'm saying. You might get lucky one year, you might not be so much lucky the next year. So the seedling stage can be in slightly warmer temperature, like 85 and below and stuff like that. Like I said, I'm sowing seeds for these in my house, and we keep our temperature at like 72 consistently. So, but the seedling stage can be a little bit warmer, around 80s, which is my weather in October. I'll explain a little bit more of that later. But in October, it's not my coldest months of the year, but it's significantly less. And 85, 80s, whatever, lower 80s is okay to be transplanting your broccolis, whatever, in your garden. They're not going to bolt. Actually, that little extra warmth will help these seedlings kind of take off, okay? But definitely you want to time it so the heading stage is in your coldest months. All right, so how do you find that window? How do you find that ideal temperature range for the majority of the Brassicas family? They like to grow, their ideal temperature range is 40 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, 40. They like some cold. They actually do okay. Cauliflower likes it even colder than broccoli, if you didn't know that. So those kind of temperatures is what you're looking for when you're growing these crops. All right, and that can also vary depending on the cultivar, because there are some cultivars of broccoli that are more heat tolerant than others. Just to give you an idea, anything that is purple colored or tone typically has a slightly more higher heat tolerance than its green version of it. So like if you want to grow Brussels sprouts and you're in a warm climate, I recommend the purple varieties if you can do that, okay? So to find your window, I need you all to go to plantmaps.com, like I mentioned earlier. You're going to put in your zip code, and at the very bottom there's a chart for every single month, and it has the maximum, the average, maximum high, and average low temperature for that month. And you're going to locate the very first month in your fall season where it's the max high average temperature is 85 or below. Okay, that's what you're looking for. For me, that's the month of October. So that means that is the month that you need to transplant your brassicas. All right. And then from that date, you have to backtrack 2 months to start your seeds for the brassicas so that they are nice, big transplant size, as big as you can get them by the time October rolls around, or your little window where its maximum average temp is 85 or below, to transplant them. Okay, so it's going to vary maybe a little bit different. I'm in zone 9B, some of you people in 8. I'm not sure what that's going to look like for you. Maybe it'll be the end of September. I don't know. I'm not an expert with like 8A specifically, but anyways, all of you, that'll work for anyone. Okay, first month where the average high is 85 or less. Okay, that's the beginning of transplanting your brassicas. And for me, that window is actually October through April, technically. But just letting you people know, in Florida, it starts getting hot by March, right? It's hot. If you're sweating outside, it's hot. And in March, we're sweating outside. Sometimes I'm even sweating outside in February. So, yeah, even though the max average high is 85 still for those months, my goal is to harvest out all my heads of broccoli, everything, by end of February. Because March, we start experiencing a lot of warmer temperatures, and things just have a tendency to start bolting at that point, okay? So your goal should be harvest this stuff out by February when the temperatures are still really, low. Okay, so on average, this varies depending on the cultivar, broccoli, cauliflower, whatever you're growing, but on average, it will take 3 to 4 months to be ready to harvest from the day it was transplanted. So we are transplanting, or I am, in October, 3 to 4 months range. So that drops me in, end of December into January and a little bit of February, depending on the cultivar. That's when you can expect to start harvesting things, okay? Someone asked a really good question on TikTok. You're in zone 9B. When can you direct sow brassicas? You don't direct sow brassicas. I don't. I've tried direct sowing seeds for brassicas in October. When it's cooler, and if it's a big plant heading types of brassicas like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, that's not enough time for them to take off, grow as big as they need to start outputting their production and be ready for harvest before before the warmer weather arrives in around March, like I was saying. I've tried many times because I would rather direct sow things. It's easier to direct sow things than to have tons of pots and seedlings and whatever. But it just doesn't work. But the smaller types of brassicas, we've got tatsoi, mustard greens, Napa cabbages, those kinds of things you can direct sow because they don't take as long to start producing like broccoli, a head of broccoli or cauliflower. So in October, I'm definitely going to be sowing seeds, direct sowing seeds for all of those types of littler size brassicas out in my garden. Okay, so also the goal with the heading type of brassicas, like I was just saying, the bigger ones, the broccoli, cauliflowers, you grow them fast. Start fertilizing those seedlings as soon as they have their first set of true leaves every single week. You want those plants to be as big as possible by the time you transplant them in October. The bigger the plant, the more energy it will have to output a nice big head of broccoli, okay? The bigger the plant. So it's really important that these things get lots of fertilizer, all right? And a good indicator that your plant is going to produce a nice big head is how thick the stem is. The thicker the stem, the bigger that head will be, okay? So if it's a thin stem, it'll still produce a little one, but, it's not going to be as big, maybe as what you're looking for. So, so bigger plants mean more energy to output, bigger heads for you to harvest, okay? If you really struggle, let's say you just really struggle, or you want to guarantee that you harvest some kind of broccoli thing, okay? I can't recommend pure Brassica, Brazilian sprouting broccoli, enough, okay? I have seeds for this on my website. All of you people in the South need to be growing this, everyone. It is a non-heading broccoli, so that means it's not going to form a big head. It forms side shoots, like broccoli rabe or rapini or something like that. But it doesn't taste bitter like broccoli rabe or rapini, because I've grown those too and I don't like the flavor. It tastes like a blend of asparagus and broccoli. It's delicious. And it is super heat tolerant. It's native to Brazil. Super heat tolerant. It's the last of my brassicas to finally die before summer comes. It is usually still producing for me all the way like through May. Okay? Please grow it, because then you don't have to worry about the whole heading thing. If it was a warm winter and you're heading broccolis, blah blah blah, all go to bolt and flower, you're not gonna harvest anything, right? You had a bad crop that year. But Piracicaba will give you something edible in the form of sprouting type broccolis, at least, okay, and it tastes delicious. So if you're a new gardener, and you struggle with growing brassicas, I can't recommend Piracicaba. I definitely grown a ton of that as a backup. So that way, if all my broccoli, cauliflowers, cabbages, whatever bolt, I still get some kind of, broccoli type thing. All right, so that's just a little tip for you guys. So, like I said, these things have to grow fast. The bigger the plant, the more energy. So, when it comes to fertilizing, the first half of the growing period from the point that you transplanted in your garden, you fertilize every single week with a balanced fertilizer, whatever, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, don't matter, just something balanced. Make sure you put in the planting hole fertilizer to give it a jump start, and it will take off from there. Okay. So, I kind of, what I do, I have a Spoma brand tomato tone all the time. I buy it in bulk, big bags, because I use it for all my tomatoes and peppers and everything. So it's the fertilizer that I just have on hand all the time. But you can definitely use garden tone or whatever. But I specifically like the organic granular fertilizers because it's organic. You won't risk overdosing your plants like you can with the synthetic stuff like a 10-10-10 or 13-13. So you don't risk that because I fertilize every single week in small doses. So the nutrients stay more consistent and are more available, nonstop for these brassicas. Okay. You can't do that with the synthetic stuff. You can't fertilize that frequently with the synthetic stuff. So whether you use the Spoma, Jobs, like whatever, and just find some organic granular fertilizer. In this case, I like the granular stuff because it breaks down more consistently instead of all at once, becoming bioavailable to your plants all at once, like a liquid fertilizer will. So small little doses per plant, like 1/16, 1/8 of a cup, something like that. At the beginning, the first half of the growing period of your, the big heading brassicas type stuff. For the littler ones that I had mentioned, tatsoys, mustards, Napa cabbages, I really like to put a big handful of blood meal in the planting holes. Blood meal makes leafy greens, so like lettuces as well, just super lush, dark green color. They look great. They really do. I see a big difference when I put a big handful of blood meal, mix it in with the soil a little bit, put in your transplant in there. So just a tip for you. Then the second half of the growing period, back to the large heading brassicas and stuff like that. The second half of their growing period, you want to focus on fertilizing to help the plant get bigger flowers and stalks, right? We're now focusing on flower production, which is that big head of broccoli. It's an unopened collection of flowers or little buds. So now we're going to focus more on adding phosphorus and potassium that support flower and bud, development and everything. I honestly just take the same old tomato tone, throw in a little bit of extra phosphorus and potassium in the form of triple super phosphate plus, that's the name of it, or muriate of potash for the potassium. Those two things are not organic. I have not been able to find a cheap, organic, or cost-effective organic potassium and phosphorus additive. There are some organic things like bone meal. That's an organic source of phosphorus, but it takes 4 months for bone meal to break down. And my broccolis need that now, as soon as I get them transplanted into the soil. So it's good to add it in the planting hole, because that plant's going to be there for like 4 months. So it'll break down and give some nutrients to it over that 4-month period, if you wanted to. But to be fertilizing it every week with bone meal is not really going to work that great for you. You're kind of wasting that bone meal. So, rock phosphate is another organic form of phosphorus. That's literally minerals, rocks ground up or whatever, but it takes years for that stuff to break down. Green sand is high in potassium. That takes 12 to 14 months to break down. Liquid kelp or kelp meal also takes a few months to start releasing its nutrients. And the amount of potassium in both of those fertilizers is pretty low. Okay, you want to give these plants a lot. Okay, so that's why I recommend. It's one of the few instances where I actually use something not organic, the triple phosphate and the muriate of potash. If you know of an organic source that's not super expensive, that is easy for people to find, let me know in the comments, send me a message, whatever. I'd be interested to know, but as far as my research goes, never found that yet. So let's summarize all this using my garden as an example in a timeline kind of thing. So August, sow seeds indoors, 4-inch pots only or solo cups. October, transplant your nice big transplants into the garden. Fertilize every single week with a balanced fertilizer. Put blood meal and bone meal if you wanted to in the planting hole at this time. Blood meal is, like I said, blood meal is high in nitrogen. That's why it promotes lush, leafy green, dark green growth. And then that bone meal will give you that phosphorus, I believe is what I said. So putting in the planting hole, that's great. Okay. Then 2 months later, fertilizing every week, like I said. 2 months later in December, halfway through the growing season, so 2 months in. You're going to switch to the fertilizers heavier in phosphorus and potassium, like I explained. You should start to see head development December, January, around that period for your broccolis and cauliflowers, heading type things. So yeah, and hopefully harvest everything before the heat comes in March. And cross your fingers, we don't have a very hot winter either. Okay? So if you want to do it, it's possible. Like I said, I've had some great years, and then I've had some bad years. But to me, it's totally worth it. It's my a big chunk of my favorite vegetables, right? I think I could say that for everyone. And I like to preserve them. I like to blanch them and freeze them and all kinds of things. So for me, it's worth at least trying to grow it. Okay? All right, guys. That was everything I did as fast as I could. And I think it's... Oh my gosh, it's 7:11 already? Okay. But I did good, because usually by the time I'm done with my notes and everything, it's over an hour. So I'm going to open up now to any questions that you guys have. Let me look back through my comments. I'm sorry, I got to reach over here to my YouTube people to pull up my comments. And like I said, if I miss something, guys, please just message me. What is the best way to fertilize heavy feeding plants like watermelon or corn if you're growing organic? That's tough because they are very heavy feeders. And it's one of the few example crops where I don't use organic stuff. Watermelons you can use garden tone, tomato tone, whatever, but you just got to be real consistent with it. But they will do a lot better when you give them some like 10-10-10. Okay, if you want some big watermelons, 10-10-10. All right, just gonna be honest with you guys here. Corn needs lots of nitrogen, and there is no organic source high enough in nitrogen to support corn. You want to fertilize that corn so much that it actually burns the leaves. The edges of the leaves are burned brown, and if they're not burned, you haven't fertilized enough. That's how much corn needs. So corn is one of the few crops where I will throw where I just fertilize with 10-10-10, 13-13, 13 whatever, that kind of stuff. Okay, it is super hard to grow corn organically. If you go in the grocery store, do you ever see organic corn? Nah. Or if you do, it's probably very expensive, because for farmers, commercial farms, and that kind of thing, and even backyard home growers, there really is no cost-effective organic fertilizer high enough to produce nice, big, beautiful corn. Okay, that's just the truth of it. Okay. Let me check next questions. Will I be able to view this again? I'm trying to take notes. Yes, this whole live class will be uploaded in a few minutes when I'm done to my YouTube channel only in the live sections tab. I also send out a summary email, so give me a few minutes when it's done. I literally go to my computer, type stuff up, and create that email to send it to you guys, so you have lists of all the resources, supplies, whatever things that I mentioned. Make sure you check out my YouTube channel. I have full-length tutorials on there, a bunch. My YouTube, if I had to tell you to follow me on one social media platform, it would be my YouTube channel, because that has everything that I do. Everything that I do. That's the best resource for you guys, okay? Okay, so let me finish up with my YouTube people here. You had 0 luck with Brassicas in the last 3 years. Well, I hope this year it changes for you, okay? So let me know how it goes. All right, now my TikTok people, I have to scroll up a little bit to check my notes or your messages. I'm sorry. If you have a question, please let me know what zone and state you're in. There's so many, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to scroll through all of these things. I purchased an earth apple from you, but have no idea what to do with it. Earth apple is a root crop that has a juicy, crispy texture with an apple celery-like flavor. It's hard to describe because it's not something that a lot of people grow and know about, which I think they should, because it produces a lot. And you can use it kind of similar like you would like jicama or something like that. It's crispy, so eating it raw is really good. I haven't done this, but I have seen YouTube videos of people that will cure them over a certain period of time to make them sweeter, and it tastes like sugary caramel at that point. Like, it's hard to explain. It's hard because there's no other kind of veggie crop or something like that is similar. But that's what you do with it. I prefer to eat it raw on salads and stuff like that. When can you direct sow brassicas? I think I answered that question already in 9B. What the website is that I said to go, plantmaps.com, plantmaps.com if you need to find your garden zone, average frost dates, and the average high, maximum, and low temperatures, plantmaps.com, okay? And I also linked that in the email that I'm about to send. What zone am I in? I'm in Orlando, Florida, zone 9B. Oh, I'm so sorry. Can I repeat the product name? I don't know which one. I don't know which one you're talking about. Put your question in there again. All right. I scrolled through all the messages there. Let me check my YouTube people back again. Oh, there's some more questions in here. Sorry, guys. When would you start potatoes in Florida, specifically North Florida? So I'm going to assume you're probably zone 9B, or 8 in there. I'm going to start planting my potatoes in November or December. I have planted them as late as February, I think, because that's when they were in my Tractor Supply store, and I grabbed a few bags. But February is it's too late. Potatoes are going to take 3 months. I say like 4 months, because I don't like harvesting small root crops, okay? Yes, you can harvest them at 3 months, but they're going to be small. If you let them grow just a little bit longer, they'll be nice and big and worth all the work it takes to dig them out. So I like mine to stay in for like 4 months, okay? And I have grown them in grow bags before. I really like that. And I made a YouTube video about how I planted them in the grow bags, and a follow-up YouTube video of the harvest from that when I planted them a little bit too late in the year in February. So I took all of those potatoes though, and I saved them to be my seed potatoes for November. All right. If you're in the South, all these companies that sell seed potatoes are not thinking about us, and the fact that we need to plant them in like November and December, and they usually release their seeds during the winter time when it's kind of too late for us. So just Google it, connect with local growers. There's 2 Florida based nurseries that I really love, and you guys should go check them out. They're backyard people like me. Practical Plants, FL.com, and Cody Co Farms. They will have seed potatoes sometimes. Practical Plants just is taking pre-orders for seed garlic. That does well in the South, but he only ships within Florida, so I'm sorry. But check out those 2 places, see if you can find anything. By the time that Tractor Supply finally has them in store, it's quite honestly too late for us people here in Florida. So I will be planting mine again like in November, okay? That's for regular potatoes. Let me get back to my messages. When do you trim the leaves on Brussels sprouts? I don't trim the leaves. Who says to trim the leaves for Brussels sprouts? You know what? Actually, I think I remember somebody telling me that you trim the leaves to force the plant to focus its energy on the little sprouts itself. But I don't do it. I don't do it. But it's important to fertilize it so that it has the nutrients and stuff that it needs. And just so you know, out of all the brassicas, probably the Brussels sprouts are going to be the most difficult. They take a long time to be ready for harvest. So good luck. I am trying to consider finding a purple cultivar and try that one out this season, but I don't know yet because they are difficult and they take forever. Okay. What is the best fertilizer for Seminole pumpkin? I use organic granular fertilizer for everything. I have Espoma brand tomato tone on hand all the time because of all the tomatoes I, plant and grow. So I just toss some of that towards my Seminole pumpkins or any of my pumpkins or squashes whenever I have a chance and I'm in my garden fertilizing things. So that's what I use. Name all the winter squashes that are disease resistant and that grows easily in South Florida. That's a lot, but I will give you the one name you need to know. Cucurbita moscata family group for very tough cultivars of squashes or winter storage squashes. Seminole pumpkin is one of them. Muskigi de Provence. I know I butchered that name, but that's what it's called. It kind of looks like calabaza, but calabaza is another one. Zucca di Longa is an Italian one. And I know I'm missing some. I have seeds for these things on my website, by the way, because I heavily grow the Cucurbita moscata, and I'll tell you why. This family group, has very thick stems, and they're woody. They're tough stems. So it's harder for things like the squash vine borer to get into them. So they're more disease resistant as well. Their leaves are really big. They tolerate the heat a lot better than Cucurbita maxima, which is like a banana squash. That's maxima squash. They will grow in my garden, but they need a little extra love and care than the Cucurbita moscata family. So if you struggle with high pest pressure diseases, squash bugs, vine borers, all the worms, which is me here, try growing things in the Cucurbita moscata family. Okay, so you can just Google it, Cucurbita moscata seeds. You can search Cucurbita moscata on my website to find all the seeds that are within that category. I can't recommend those enough. Now, they are more disease pest resistant. That doesn't mean you won't get them. It just means they're more resistant. So you have greater chances and success of actually harvesting something compared to, other things that you're growing in your garden, okay? I still spray mine with BT spray at the first signs of seeing any kind of chewed up damage on the leaves, because I'm in Florida. The worms here are insane, and as soon as I see worms chewing up anything, I spray with BT to quickly knock that population back down, because if not, literally the next day it's doubled and the next day it's tripled. Like, they get out of control really quickly. So if you want to be spraying your garden less with any kind of treatments for worms, make sure you're on top of it as soon as you see damage. So because I'm quick to catch it and I treat early, I don't need to spray as often. I probably spray 5 times in a whole year, maybe something like that. If you're in a garden area where you don't have so many worms and you can hand pick them, that's great. I wish that was my situation, but I can't keep up with that. It's hundreds of thousands of worms. Okay, I don't even like touching them. Okay, so for me, to hand picking is not an option. But if you're in an area where you can hand pick, then that's great. Do that. Use less chemicals in your garden. But if that's not your situation, don't feel bad. You're not a bad gardener. You just got a lot of worms in your area, like I do here. Okay. Don't feel bad for using BT. It is considered an organic spray. It's called BT, stands for Bacillus thuringiensis. It's a bacteria that this spray is made out of. It disrupts the digestive system of the worms when they chew any of the leaves that have been sprayed with it. Okay. They have to ingest it. So it's a pretty safe product to use in your garden. I get attacked all the time when I recommend BT because people say that it kills bees and stuff like that. It only works if they eat it. They have to ingest it, okay? So it will kill butterfly caterpillars, but don't be spraying your butterfly plants. Don't spray milkweed and flowers. No, don't do that. Just spray the actual affected plants, okay? and spray in the evening. So that way by morning time, the product is dried and it's not like dripping. And, you know, if a bee does land on the leaf, or not a bee, but, you know, whatever, it's dry, and it doesn't even last in your garden very long. It washes off. If it rains, it washes off. It's gone. So pretty safe to use. I've been using it for years. Use BT if you have any worm problems. Okay. So, you would love a fertilizer tutorial video. That's a great idea. I get a lot of good ideas for videos from you guys. I have a whole list of videos that I want to make and get to. It's just this weather right now is disgusting. Like, I almost had a heat stroke today. I was at my second garden. If you guys didn't know, this is my home, but I live in an HOA community. It's a very small garden. I can't have bees or chickens here. So I have a second garden on my aunt's property. She has a couple acres in the country with no rules. All right. And that's where I have all my chickens and my bees. So I was out there today doing a lot of projects with my bee suit on, and I literally almost passed out. It was horrific. Okay. So I'm really waiting for fall. I have so many ideas, so many videos I want to make. But I'm waiting for fall because I just can't do it. I can't do it. It's so hard to be out there. I don't know if you've seen some of my videos. Maybe you've noticed that it's sprinkling rain a little bit, because I would rather be outside in the rain than in the heat right now, okay? But I definitely have a lot coming up. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, guys. And I just got the notification on one of my phones that the battery is getting low, just so you guys know. Let me look at some more questions here. So if I get disconnected, that's the end of the class. I'm sorry, guys. If you have questions, message me, email me, whatever you got to do. What are your top 5 food security crops? That's a hard question because I grow so many things and I can't imagine just picking 5. But and it also depends where you're located. I don't know if you're in the South, but if you're in the South, if I had to pick some right off the top of my head, definitely Seminole pumpkin, or anything in the Cucurbita moscata. I'm gonna get into some things that maybe people don't like to eat so much, or lesser known things. But if your goal is to have food security and you want crops that you can depend on that are going to produce despite the extreme conditions or our poor sandy soil, yucca is a root crop. I love yucca. We grow that on my aunt's property. Produces a lot of food per plant, or pounds per plant. Calabaza, which is same family as the Seminole pumpkin, Cucurbita moscata, grows big pumpkin size things that store for a really long time. Some of the other things that you might not like, and I have them growing, but if I could eat something else, I would. Chaya, or South Sea salad tree, which I actually have plants for that on my website, Chief Kubo's South Sea salad tree. And I have one right here, a little one, that I've been growing out that desperately needs to be planted. But this is what the leaves look like, and there's different cultivars of this. I know what y'all gonna say, it's not that, okay? This is South Sea salad tree. It's an edible green leaf. Tastes kind of like lettuce to me. So if you want greens and you live in a tough southern climate, Chaya, South Sea salad tree, they grow massive plants, so many greens that you can't eat it all, okay? And they're perennial, so they will last for a long time. And food security, I also have a lot of fruit trees, because they, once they're established, they're going to produce for you pretty well. Probably throw in a couple fruit trees in there, like avocados, mangoes. They just produce a lot. Barbados cherry. So that's what I recommend there. And moringa. Moringa is another crop that I recommend for food security, because it has all your, it's high in plant protein, minerals, iron, everything. So if something were to happen in this world, I do have quite a few moringa trees. I like to eat them. I dry out the leaves, which is another video I'm going to be making, how to grow moringa. And dry out the leaves and all that kind of thing as a nutritional supplement. And I feed it to my chickens too. So I don't know if I hit 5, but I'm pretty sure I gave you some. Oh, sweet potatoes. Yes, sweet potatoes. If you're in the South, that is definitely a survival crop. But the sweet potatoes and the yucca root crops will give you tons of carbs. And yucca doesn't store, though. Once you harvest those things, you got to eat them in a couple days. But you can harvest out the plants as needed. That's what we do, okay? So I hope I give you some ideas. Again, I don't know where you're located, but in Florida anyways, or the South and hot climates, that's probably what's best for you. Do I have success growing plants with potted soil alone, or do you have to add other amendments? Depends what I'm growing. I don't really grow with potted soil. To be honest, I get the cheapest compost I can find. All right. And I've had compost just delivered to me as well in bulk when I need it, and I fill everything with pure compost. And I know a lot of people say pure compost will burn your plants. I've never experienced that. If you're buying properly composted things, it's not going to burn your plants. Or if it did, it wasn't composted long enough. Okay. So literally, I get the cheapest compost I can find. I filled up all my grow bags with it, my raised beds. Over the years, certain sections of my gardens, the whole land has been covered in wood chips, and it's broken down, and it's basically just rich, organic, wonderful soil to grow in using wood chips. So I don't really use potting mix. Even for seed starting, I don't really use potting mix. But I recommend it to people if you can't find certain things. You know, most of the time you can always find potting mix in any store, right? All right, what else here? But potting soil will run out of nutrients after actually anything that you're growing in a pot is going to run out of nutrients because it flushes out of the soil a lot faster than something like in ground. So fertilize your plants if you can. If you notice the leaves are yellowing, it's either it needs nitrogen or you're watering too much. But yeah, in general, at some point, no matter what soil you're using, it's going to run out of nutrients. Unless you're heavily composting all the time and stuff like that, or amending. How to treat for spider mites. I hate spider mites. I got them really bad this spring. I used an organic insecticidal soap. And I just sprayed them. I mixed my own. I bought a concentrate, mixed it, and kept spraying the plants. You really got to break that life cycle, so be on top of spraying it, okay, or they get out of control. They really love to hit the tomatoes and eggplants a lot. So I struggled with that a lot this spring, but just keeping up with the organic insecticidal soap. Also spinosad spray, which is also considered organic, kills soft-bodied insects on contact. So I was using both of those products I didn't get rid of them. I mean, it's hard to get rid of them, but it kept the infestation levels more down so my plant will survive and produce something for me. You just got to stay on top of it, and as soon as you see it, you need to be treating for it so it doesn't get out of control. And if I'm pointing at my YouTube people, it's because I have to like touch it to get my messages on like TikTok over here. Let me see. Do I grow any medicinal plants? I have a lot of herbs and stuff that probably are considered medicinal as well. The rabbits ate your yard long beans. I'm sorry for you people that deal with rodents, rabbits, deer. That's a tough situation. I gotta hand it to you. You know, if you're successful growing food, I'm in a little community here, and I've never had issues with that stuff because I'm in a neighborhood, and I get squirrels, but they don't even like. So far, I've been living here for 7 years. They haven't eaten up like my avocados and mangoes and stuff like that, or they haven't become aware maybe yet of what they are. I'm not sure, but thankfully I don't deal with that. If I did, I think I would have to build a whole wooden structure, like fencing around my garden, like to do it properly. And I have privacy fencing here too, so that's probably more so why things don't get in here. But my aunt, where I have my second garden, she's got a couple acres of land. Everything's open there, except the chickens are, totally enclosed because we don't want them eating up our garden. And I haven't had a real issue there yet, but she does live by woods and stuff like that. So I'm kind of surprised I haven't had at least rabbits or something. But I'm sorry that happened to you. If you come out one day in your garden and since the previous day, your plant was all of a sudden chewed down, like just chewed. It was some kind of animal. Worms and stuff don't work that fast. So it was some kind of animal. And I say this because I do actually get quite a few messages from people where they'll send me a picture like, what happened? What bug caused this? I'm like, I don't think that was not a bug. Okay. They don't work that fast. If you come out and they're just cut, like snipped, gone, it was an animal. All right. So just Just so you guys know the difference there. Let me check my TikTok, people. I promise I'm not ignoring you guys. It's trying to answer everyone's questions here. I gotta scroll up to where I left off. Lots of questions in here. Hi, I'm in St. Cloud. I have peppers with yellowing leaves. They are watered 3 times a week. Any idea? Yes. So peppers are suffering right now. Okay, mine are also they look awful, awful. All right, you want to get your peppers. The best time I found to grow peppers is springtime, before all the heat sets in. They just struggle. You would think peppers they are a warm crop, okay, but they don't like extreme heat, 95 and up. We had 100-degree weather days. They look miserable. All of the rain. They like drier soil than tomatoes, okay? They like it a little bit drier, so they're just struggling. If they're yellowing, it's because probably all of the rain. And so this year I actually planted my peppers in a spot that gets a lot of bright morning sun with afternoon shade, and they've done a lot better for that, but they're still struggling because of all of the rain. It will help if you plant your peppers in a raised bed or garden, grow bags to help with that extra drainage. If you can get them just to survive out of our summer, they'll perk back up during fall when the temperatures drop and things kind of, ease out, moderate itself, whatever. And they'll continue producing for you if they survive. A lot of times mine don't survive, but I've already harvested a ton from them before that point anyways. So that's what's going on. Just give it some fertilizer. Only water it if the soil is actually drying out in between watering. I barely water right now. I mean, well, if every other day if we didn't get rain one day, because yeah, it's high heat right now. So, and a great way to know if your plants actually need to be watered. All things are going to start wilting in the middle of the highest point of the day because it's just so hot. Doesn't mean that they don't have water, but if they don't perk back up by evening time when the temperatures go back down, they actually need water at that point. They are wilting because they need water. Is it okay to start carrots in seed trays? No. Carrots is one of those crops where it has to be direct sowed. It's a root. So carrots, when they germinate, that seedling will push out a long taproot. That will be your carrot one day in the future. So if that gets messed up because you transplanted it and messed with the roots or whatever while transplanting, or it hits like a rock, something in the soil, it'll go around it, divide, instead of being a nice, strong, straight carrot, it'll divide and go around it. They're very sensitive. Their roots are very sensitive. So you have to direct sow seeds for carrots. I will start direct sowing seeds at the very end of September for Kuroda carrots because they have a higher heat tolerance than a lot of the other varieties. Or if you're growing a purple or black carrot, because a lot of the purple or black versions of crops can tolerate a little bit higher heat. So those I will do at the very end of September, if you can't even October. The rest of them that I enjoy to grow, like Danvers, Cosmic Purple is a purple one, but I like to wait until I think it's November when I direct sow seeds for all my carrots. And I actually have a YouTube video guide all about how to grow carrots from seed all the way to harvest too, that will really do a great job explaining that and answering your questions. But they have to be direct sowed, absolutely. I started seedlings in those red solo cups and it rooted, even had maggots. Whoa. That has never happened. Rotted, sorry, it rotted and it even had maggots. Did you overwater? I've never experienced that before, so I think you've just had a bad incident. Not sure what could have caused that. Maybe you had gnats or flies that laid eggs in the soil you were using or something. Not really sure. You have slugs on zinnias and potatoes. Are they slugs or worms? I've never had a bug issue with my zinnias, and I definitely don't have slugs. Slugs is a pest that I haven't dealt with yet in my garden, so I don't feel like I can speak to how to deal with slugs because of that. But potatoes will get quite a few different kinds of insects or grubs that like to chew them up as well. So you would have to Google what specifically is going on with your crop to know how to treat for it. Have I tried beer traps? I'm not, because I haven't had a slug problem. But if I did, that's the first thing I would do, because I have heard a lot about the beer traps. You make it yourself. They're attracted to the scent and they drown in the beer. That's the first thing I would do. But if that doesn't work, then I would go on Amazon, Google, and try to find other slug type products. Diatomaceous earth also helps because it's very fine powdered minerals. My batteries are even lower, guys, so I'm gonna have to wrap this up or it's just gonna disconnect. Diatomaceous earth is fine powderized rocks and stuff, and so when a slug or a soft-bodied, oh geez, there went my TikTok. There went that phone. It actually overheated. That is how hot it is here. It overheated and it shut down. So I'm sorry, my TikTok people. So sorry. I was answering someone's question too. That's why I recommend you just watch me on YouTube. Okay? I have the best phone on YouTube because I'm actually, I care more about my YouTube than anything else. So for a secret for you guys, if you want the best of what I have to offer, find me on YouTube. Okay? Let me go back to my YouTube people and see if there's any final questions here before I continue here. Okay, no more questions. I guess maybe I just need to end it here anyways. You know, I always enjoy talking to you guys. The next class is slated to be Sunday, September 3rd. So I'm wrapping up here. If you need seeds, anything that I mentioned, I have it on my website, and there's a seed sale going on right now. It ends Wednesday. So take advantage of that. So yeah, I'll see you guys in a few weeks. I hope your homework is to start your brassicas, flowers, and herb seeds by the next time that I see you. Right now, you have to do that in the month of August if you're in the southern parts of the United States, zones 8 and up. Okay. If you need more ideas for things that you can grow right now, I do have the August gardening guide YouTube video that goes through everything. I also just made a video where I picked out my top 10 favorite like crops, veggies, flowers, whatever, that I look forward to growing every single fall. Like I can't imagine not having a fall garden with those. So if you want like my top 10 favorite, like what I recommend, like you have to grow this stuff, go check out that video. I think that one posted Friday, if I'm getting my videos right. So it's like my newest one. Because yeah, people are always asking me, you know, what do you recommend for this or that? Well, there's that video. Go check it out. It'll give you the best of the best. All right, guys. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in a couple weeks. All right. Happy gardening.